So we're going to go over divine projections. A lot of people, when they go to church and when they experience religion, you really think that they're worshiping the God in the Bible, but they're usually worshiping a divine projection. Now, that's not to say most people in church aren't worshiping like God itself. No, no, but they are projecting onto God. So there's some very powerful divine protections. We can call them pseudo gods and almost pseudo religions because people won't go to churches or even take part in faiths that don't have their pseudo god there. So the first one is the Sky Father, right? It's God as a distant monarch whose authority must be obeyed to earn presence. God is above you. Obedience earns grace. Power proves divinity. Hierarchy is sacred. God's wrath keeps the world in line. But that God isn't God. It's empire trauma, father wounds, and fear of chaos in a bundle. Okay, so it really causes emotional and social effects, and each one of these, even follow-up projections, do this in an even more aggressive and dangerous way. So with the Sky Father, you measure your worth by compliance. You fear mistakes as evidence of distance. You treat silence as abandonment. You perform holiness while numbing your humanity. You mistake fear for reverence. The Sky Father is a grand king on a hill, right? Like, and a lot of people project that belief out, right? The next one is the mirror sovereign. God is who I must become to be accepted. So you curate your own identity to appear worthy. Worship becomes performance. Intimacy becomes shame. Your spirituality is fragile to judgment, right? That's the mirror sovereign. Then there's the engineer God. God is a rule system. If I crack the code, I'll be safe. So you intellectualize your faith. The prayer becomes calculation. You know, you start saying the perfect, most ideal prayer to get what you want. Emotions feel like interference, and mystery feels like a threat. When a person is following the engineer God, anytime that you propose any divine mystery, any divine misunderstanding, any new information that didn't meet their calculation, right, or intellectualization, it will feel like a threat to them. Then there's the sacred fire starter. God burns what he hates. I better not be one of them. So righteousness becomes warfare. Judgment becomes identity. Love becomes earned through intensity. And you confuse spiritual aggression for passion. Right? Like, so, you know, the person who was rebuking you, for sinning instead of praying for you at all, like, and showing you love like God would have if he was moving through them, they were absolutely following the sacred fire starter. Then there's the cosmic absentee. God is distant, disinterested, cold. I'm on my own. So then you stop praying. You spiritualize depression as detachment. You survive in numbness, not surrender. And hope is something you mock to protect yourself. Then there's the overmother. God loves everyone and nothing else matters. So then accountability becomes taboo. Boundaries are blurred. Distortions is accepted, right, to avoid conflict. It's really, the overmother is really strange, and real truth is drowned in forced of for the sake of forced compassion. So a lot of these projections come from a set of 4 fears: fear of abandonment, fear of unworthiness, fear of failure, fear of complexity. Each one says, if I relate to God in this way, I can survive. So in doing so, they worship the projection instead of returning to presence. Because God doesn't demand performance, doesn't punish confusion, doesn't sit on a throne waiting to be impressed, and breathes through every ache and asks nothing but your return. Right? So these projections are loops of worship built on fear. Loops of worship. They are not false because they're not false because they aren't spiritual. Like, that's what I'm trying to get at. They're false because they're disconnected from intimacy. So the more distorted the projection, the more shame you'll carry just for existing. So they're all really dangerous. But a good way to think about it is that which projection speaks still in your mind, and which one are you willing to dissolve? You're not abandoning God to let these projections dissolve, right? Like, it's more that God needs to be real for a person who believes in him. Does that make sense? So through breath, stillness, and the voice that has always said, I was never above you, I've always been with you. That's when you leave the loop and you return to presence that has never left. But if God isn't a presence that's never left for you, then I don't know what we're talking about. Because you might be talking about the Sky Father, which is your projection. Like, it's just kind of thing. It's a real interesting situation. I'm going to study these more because I believe that the black community has a divine protection, not a divine protection. A divine protection, but a divine distortion that appears in the black church that makes things a lot worse. So if you see an immediate follow-up to this video, then yeah, that's what that's about.